When you first launched Litecoin, did you imagine it would ever reach this kind of institutional adoption?
Institutional adoption was like way out there, not even something that anyone cared about at that time. I created Litecoin kind of as like a fun side project. I never expected much of it. The fact that it's kind of been so relevant and lasted for so many years is kind of beyond my wildest imagination.
Do you think people in general are underestimating Litecoin's use as a day-to-day payment network, I guess, when you compare it to like Bitcoin's more store of value narrative?
In some aspect, it's doing better than Bitcoin in terms of means of exchange, right? It has lower fees, faster transactions. We see more and more people using Litecoin over even Bitcoin for payments.
Let's say in the future, looking ahead 5 to 10 years, do you think Litecoin will still have this similar narrative of, let's say, silver to Bitcoin's gold, or maybe it evolves into something slightly different?
The main problem is...
Hello, everyone. My name is Valdrin, and I'm an analyst for CCN. And today we have with us Mr. Charlie Lee, the founder of Litecoin, and we're going to talk about different topics, mainly about Lite strategy becoming the first US company to hold Litecoin as a primary treasury asset. So yeah, first of all, hi Charlie, how are you?
Hi, Valdrin.
Firstly, congratulations on the milestone. So when you first launched Litecoin, did you imagine it would ever reach this kind of institutional adoption?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're referring to Lite strategy adopting Litecoin as its reserve, treasury reserve, and also upcoming Litecoin ETF launch. Yeah, well, when I first launched Litecoin in 2011, institutional adoption wasn't on my mind or anyone's mind for that matter, not even like Bitcoin supporters at that time. I mean, people were just wondering if this experimental money would succeed, right? Whether or not there would be actual adoption period by people. So, I mean, institutional adoption was like way out there, not even something that anyone cared about at that time. So the answer is no. I mean, things have come along very far since 2011.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. How does it feel though, then personally, to see a project you created without ever, like, maybe imagining it would come this big, reaching like this stage?
Yeah, well, the Litecoin, I created Litecoin kind of as like a fun side project. I never expected much of it. So the fact that it's kind of been so relevant and lasted for so many years is kind of beyond my wildest imagination. So yeah, it's totally crazy, wild ride, seeing where Litecoin started and where it is right now.
Yeah. Okay, and then circling back to Lite strategy, why do you think it chose Litecoin for its primary reserve treasury asset instead of like Ethereum, what many companies are doing, or maybe even Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it's because Litecoin strikes a kind of a unique balance in comparison to Bitcoin's sound money policy and proven security, but it has faster settlement times, lower fees, and a long record of reliability. Right, Litecoin's been up and running since the day I launched in October of 2011 for almost 14 years of kind of continuous uptime. So something like that is very compelling for money, right? For treasury reserve. For money, you want something to be reliable, easy to use, fast, cheap, and something that just works. So I think Lite strategy chose Litecoin because of that, and also because it's not just another bet on Bitcoin, right? It's a diversification play. So with Bitcoin and Litecoin, it's a very complementary kind of asset class. So I think for that reason, also, I think it's a good choice for Lite strategy to choose Litecoin.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then with GSR also advising, do you think this is a one-off thing, or do you think more public companies will start adopting Litecoin or adding it into their corporate treasuries?
It's definitely not a one-off thing. There's actually quite a few companies that have reached out to me that they're interested in doing something similar in other countries, in other on other exchanges. So I think Litecoin is being adopted by institution. There's definitely demand, so companies are kind of rising up to meet that demand. So I'm interested to see what happens in the near future with more and more companies choosing Litecoin as its treasury reserve. And I also see that there are companies that would have a basket of cryptocurrencies. That would be a good kind of reserve asset. So I can see them doing both Bitcoin and Litecoin and potentially other coins also.
Okay, that makes sense. And okay, so moving to a slightly different question. Sorry, I saw in one of your Twitter threads recently that you mentioned that decentralization and resistance to centralization are, let's say, core at the core of Litecoin's philosophy. So, do you think these steps, Litecoin becoming a corporate asset reserve, sort of, might in the future pose unintended centralization worries, such as maybe overdependence on large holders or centralized entities?
I guess the design of Litecoin and Bitcoin is that no single company or government has control over the coin, right? So the governance is kind of decentralized. Mining is distributed. So and because it's not unlike proof of stake coins, Litecoin is a proof of work coin where the control is in the hands of miners and the people. So not large holders, right? Large holders would not have much say in where the coin goes in the direction of the coin. So yeah, so I don't see that as an issue of any one company holding a lot of Litecoin. And that said, it's not like Lite Strategy holds like 50% of all Litecoins in existence, right? So it's only a small percentage. And because of Litecoin's fair launch, the holders of Litecoin is very, very distributed. Like some cryptocurrencies, for example, launch with a foundation holding like 80% of the coins, right? Where they kind of control the supply. With Litecoin, it's fully mined from the start, no pre-mine, so it's very well distributed from the get-go. So I don't see really any company being able to acquire a large amount of Litecoin without forking over like billions, right? So it's not. I don't see that as an issue at all.
Okay. But do you think that is impossible? I mean, we've seen companies buying lots and lots of billions on Ethereum and Bitcoin, which obviously it matters less because they have higher market caps. But
Yeah.
if we see similar investment in Litecoin, obviously they wouldn't get 50% of the supply. But do you think it's possible that several companies, let's say, hold maybe a third of the supply? And would that be a problem if it happens?
Well, if companies try to buy a lot of Litecoin, I mean, it's a good problem to have. The market cap will shoot up, right? Because of so much demand. I don't see that as a problem. And I mean, even today, like exchanges hold a lot of coins, right? Like for example, Coinbase holds a big percentage of Litecoins in existence. Of course, it's owned by hundreds of thousands of people, but it's the exchange itself holds like all those coins. So if there's any concern about that, that would be an issue. But there's really no concern of any one entity holding a lot of coins because it doesn't give them any power over a proof of work coin.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The more concern I have is if an entity holds a large amount of coins, if they get hacked and a hacker steals all those coins, that would be the bigger concern, right? Having kind of a central place of kind of a single point of failure. If that happens, coins could be dumped on the market, causing the price to crash, right? That's more of a concern than anything else, than any governance concern.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for the clarification. Well, then let's just make a comparison with Bitcoin. So Litecoin has been, I guess I could say, quietly integrated to PayPal, Venmo, Robinhood, and others. And do you think people in general are underestimating Litecoin's use as a day-to-day payment network, I guess, when you compare it to like Bitcoin's more store of value narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I think both Bitcoin and Litecoin, the goal is for it to become like the best form of money, right? So for money, it's both store value and also means of exchange, right? And with Litecoin, in some aspect, it's doing better than Bitcoin in terms of means of exchange, right? It has lower fees, faster transactions, good enough for everyday purchases. So we see more and more people using Litecoin over even Bitcoin for payments. Like on BitPay, one of the largest like crypto payment processor, Litecoin has consistently been the number one used cryptocurrency, more so than even Bitcoin and Ethereum and stable coins for payments. And that's just because of Litecoin's features of just fast and cheap payments and also reliability.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And let's say in the future, looking ahead 5 to 10 years, do you think Litecoin will still have this similar narrative of, let's say, silver to Bitcoin's gold, or maybe it evolves into something slightly different?
I think that's always going to be kind of there, that Litecoin and Bitcoin complement each other. Um, Being both are good store of value means of payments. So kind of the good um, critical pillar of the hard money ecosystem. Um, yeah, I think the the main problem is with the current kind of financial system is fiat currencies, right? Where the government has control over its supply, and for various reasons, they keep on printing more and more. So inflation is a huge concern, and uh, yeah, so people storing money in U.S. dollar, for example, is not a great store of value. Over the past dozens of years, the people have lost a lot of wealth storing money in U.S. dollars. So you'll see Bitcoin and Litecoin being a much better alternative store value for the general population. I think that will continue to be the case moving forward.
Yeah,
Potentially
that's true.
even a bigger case moving forward with the U.S. dollar being like overprinting of the U.S. dollar and such.
Okay. And uh, according to you, what do you think is, let's say, the biggest misconception about Litecoin that not you wish, but you think, I guess, institutions or investors or even the like general crypto community has?
It's one of the biggest misconceptions is that Litecoin is just a kind of a cheap copy of Bitcoin, right? Um, it's true that Litecoin and Bitcoin are very similar, but Litecoin has been running for almost 14 years nonstop. It's really battle tested, and we have innovation on top of Litecoin, um, including MWeb, which is a privacy fungibility layer on top of Litecoin that Bitcoin doesn't have. So one of the things that we worked on is to try to make Litecoin the best form of money possible. And one thing that was missing from Litecoin and Bitcoin is fungibility. Is the idea that each and every single Litecoin is exactly the same as another one. So it doesn't matter which coin you spend, it shouldn't affect the payment, right? But that wasn't the case before, where because the blockchain is public, people can see kind of the history of the coin. So, for example, if the coin came from a darknet marketplace or something that merchants or the government doesn't like, it could affect the fungibility of the coin, right? So adding a privacy and fungibility layer on top of that would make it better money. So for example, on MWeb, when I send coins, only the sender and the recipient can see the amount of coins being sent, because that's information that is potentially sensitive, right? There's no reason for anyone else to know, to see the transaction between the sender and recipient, right? And using Maverick cryptography, everyone can still prove that I didn't create coins out of thin air for my transaction, right? So total number of coins stays at 84 million. And that's very important, right? And that's why the blockchain is public in the first place. So with the beauty of cryptography, you can still prove that that's the case, but no one else can see how much money is sent. So, for example, if I get paid from my company, if my salary is paid in Litecoin, and then I use that Litecoin to buy coffee, the barista or someone else can actually see like how much money I have in my bank account, how much I got paid, which is not great for financial privacy, right? So I think that's something that is missing, and that's something that we're addressing. So in that aspect, Litecoin is kind of improving on Bitcoin to be a better form of money.
Okay, that makes sense. Does that mechanism use some sort of ZK proof, or is it something different?
It's something different. So ZK proof is, so there are various kind of technologies for privacy. There are trade-offs, right? Some are more kind of more private, ZK being one of those things. But the trade-off is like a larger kind of transaction, slower transactions. So with Litecoin, we ended up choosing the mimblewimble technology to do it. So it's not perfect privacy, and we don't think that you need perfect privacy, but it's good enough for everyday transactions, and it strikes a kind of a right balance in my mind for privacy fungibility versus usability.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so the final two questions. So if hypothetically, if a public company CEO called you tomorrow and would ask you like, why should we choose Litecoin for our treasury? What would be like your, not one-liner, but like your straight to the point answer?
Litecoin gives you kind of Bitcoin's credibility plus everyday utility in terms of in form of cheap and fast payments, with the kind of longest uninterrupted uptime in crypto. So it has the reliability of just what you want from your treasury asset, from money.
Okay, yeah, that's a great answer. That makes sense. Okay, then finally, what do you think is the most exciting thing going on about Litecoin right now?
What I think is most exciting is that people use Litecoin because of because of the feature of good sound money, right? So people are using Litecoin to buy stuff online, and that's why it's the number one crypto on BitPay, right? And not because of any kind of hype or any kind of flashiness of the coin. It's just that it's useful as money, and that's what excites me the most, right? That's kind of the goal I set out when I first created Litecoin, and people use Litecoin and they don't even have to know who I am, right? There's like whoever created it, the company behind it, or I mean the foundation that supports it, even Lite strategy. No one, you don't need to know any of that. You just use Litecoin because it works, and that's kind of what excites me every day about Litecoin.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, then, Charlie, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk with us. And yeah, I hope in the future more and more companies continue adopting Litecoin. And yeah, institutional adoption goes through the roof.
Thanks, Valdrin.